pe scurt tema, pentru că au apărut subiecte de actualitate.
Hello. Good afternoon to everybody. Bună ziua.
Bună ziua. Wir haben
Good afternoon.
Frau Bolbacker, from Deutsch auf Rumänisch, ja?
Ja, wir haben simultane Übersetzung. Es gibt ein Button.
Gut, ich nehme an, Sie werden kurz
ja.
die Prozedere kurz beschreiben für die Kolleginnen und Kollegen.
Bună ziua, sunt într-o conferință, pot reveni eu într-o oră așa? Ok, mulțumesc, la revedere.
Lassen wir alles, Andreas.
Vă rugăm să vă opriți microfoanele atunci când nu discutați. De asemenea, este necesar să vă setați numele în acord pentru prezența pe care o facem. Folosiți funcția de chat dacă doriți să ne adresați întrebări sau aveți intervenții și vă menționăm că avem traducere simultană română-germană. Este un buton în partea de jos a ecranului cu un glob. Optați pentru română dacă sunteți vorbitori de română sau germană dacă sunteți vorbitori de germană. Pentru că avem traducere simultană, o să avem rugămintea să discutați, să vorbiți rar atunci când interveniți. Avem un singur interpret și cam atâtea ar fi intervenția din partea mea. Mulțumim!
Yeah, hello to everyone. I think we wait maybe 5 more minutes and then we will add 2 more minutes and then we start. So now it's now it's 4 o'clock and 4 minutes. We will start in one minute. Let the guests arrive. For those who have not read the email that we have sent out just 1 hour ago, we will not talk about future of work today because we have a war in our neighboring country in the Ukraine, and I think it's good to use this occasion that our community comes together and to share thoughts, maybe also some experiences and things that you have heard. So we will use today the members meeting actually to exchange some thoughts inside of our business community. And we have also prepared some economical input. Mr. Dascolo from Becere was so kind enough and to react very, very fast and give us some thoughts about what could happen, what is happening in the future when this war in the Ukraine starts to continue. It looks like this, but all this we will discuss later after the opening statement. So I think, Andreas, now we are reaching 70 people. We had much more. I want to excuse also, before you start, Andreas, I want to excuse also that we have to change the agenda towards the panelist. We had a wonderful panel with PwC, with Ms. Juana Montano, with Christina von Bosch, with Lucian Oprisch from Colliers and Tudor Pop from Hotspot, and we had also a guest speaker from BASF, Mr. Christoph Stromello. Thanks very much for your availability, but please understand the current situation, and we will postpone this topic, future of work, but today we will talk about the Ukraine and the conflicts, and I think it is appropriate to change this. So by saying this, I think now everybody who wants to join right now is in the call, and Andreas, please welcome our community with your opening remarks.
Many thanks, mulțumesc, Sebastian. Ich werde auf Deutsch weitermachen.
Voi continua în limba germană. Dragi membri ai Camerei de Comerț și Industrie Română-Germane, dragi colegi, în numele conducerii Camerei doresc să vă urez bun venit la adunarea generală de astăzi. Se spune că trebuie să continuăm business as usual lucrurile, dar când ne uităm la agresiunea fără precedent a Rusiei asupra Ucrainei, vecinul nostru, și catastrofa umanitară care s-a născut în țara noastră vecină, ăsta e motivul pentru care nu vom continua cu business as usual, ci vom avea o întâlnire în care vom discuta despre situație. Mulți dintre noi au început să-i ajute pe oamenii din Ucraina. De exemplu, firma mea e prezentă de zile alături de colegii ucraineni în sprijinul lor. Încercăm să-i trecem peste graniță în Polonia, Ungaria, Slovacia, România. Pentru mine e o temă de suflet, după cum știu dintre dumneavoastră, mulți am condus BASF Ucraina timp de 7 ani, până în 2019, până când m-am mutat în această țară minunată a Uniunii Europene și în Ucraina am trăit împreună cu soția și cei 2 fii ai mei. Avem mulți prieteni acolo și pe durata întregului weekend, chiar și acum, le întindem o mână de ajutor familiilor și prietenilor noștri să găsească locuri sigure. Am urmărit din prima mână situația dramatică de la Kiev. Am vorbit la telefon și eu și copiii mei și copiii îmi spuneau: tată, la Kiev cad bombele, ceea ce ne-a strânit emoții foarte puternice. Vedem și experimentăm o solidaritate puternică pentru oamenii din Ucraina. Îi rog pe cei care vorbesc să-și pună microfoanele pe mute. Și de această solidaritate sunt recunoscători oamenii din Ucraina. În fundal se aud voci. Vă rugăm să puneți microfoanele pe mute. Vă rugăm și noi pe dumneavoastră să arătați solidaritate, să sprijiniți, să ajutați. Dragi membri ai Camerei, vă propun să ne gândim împreună cum putem, ca firme româno-germane, comunitate de afaceri româno-germană, să ajutăm. Fiecare dintre noi și cu toți împreună putem să avem o contribuție, cum spunea Sebastian. O să primim o perspectivă economică de început astăzi și vă rugăm să vă împărtășiți gândurile cu privire la situația actuală cu noi. Și dacă planificați ceva personal sau firma dumneavoastră, haideți să discutăm. Sperăm să aveți o contribuție importantă și ceea ce putem noi să facem în calitate de comunitate de afaceri română-germană, cum putem să ajutăm. Și vreau să închei cuvântul de salut. Haideți să ne rugăm pentru Ucraina și oamenii ei, să fim solidari și să-i sprijinim. Vă mulțumesc mult! Îți mulțumesc, dragă Andreas, pentru cuvintele tale călduroase. Camera este în faza în care caută locurile în care poate să sprijine. Vedeți aici pe slide câteva organizații. Crucea Roșie e o instituție foarte importantă. Camera colectează informații de la dumneavoastră cu plăcere dacă vreți să ne informați și dacă vreți să diseminați proiectele dumneavoastră de sprijin în mediile noastre de informare. Deci comunicați către noi. suntem încă în faza de căutări a unor concepte și pregătiri. Ca de obicei puteți să comunicați cu noi și pe această temă, să ne spuneți despre proiecte care se întâmplă și pot fi diseminate în comunitatea noastră, le diseminăm și noi cu plăcere către comunitate, astfel încât să putem să ridicăm nivelul intervențiilor noastre. Din această perspectivă, după cum arată, o să mai avem comunicare cu dumneavoastră și mai încolo și vă vom da informații suplimentare. Organizația Umbrelă de IHK are o pagină de internet pregătită și încearcă să informeze firmele germane. Deci pentru aceia dintre dumneavoastră care pot citi în limba germană, vă vom comunica adresa de internet a Camerei din Germania și astfel vedeți aici de la doamna Kleininger linkul. Aici puteți să colectați informații suplimentare pe limba germană. Foarte pe scurt vreau să vă prezint programul. Ne-am pregătit cu multe subiecte pe anul acesta. Sustenabilitatea este firul roșu al anului acestuia. În ce privește evenimentele noastre Future of Work, o să-l amânăm, dar o să vă anunțăm când revine tema. Mai avem un mic eveniment în care este vorba despre advocacy meets community. Vom discuta despre achizițiile publice. E un eveniment în cadrul restrâns pe care vrem să-l desfășurăm în comunitatea noastră și vedeți aici pe fundal celelalte evenimente pe care le pregătim până la sfârșitul anului. Sigur, trebuie să fim reținuți în ceea ce ne propunem, pentru că nu știm cum arată ziua de mâine. Totuși încercăm să continuăm evenimentele noastre dacă reușim și vă ținem oricum la curent. În încheiere, până când îl introduc pe domnul Dascălu și îi dau cuvântul, aș dori să le mulțumesc din suflet și noilor noștri membri pentru adeziune. Avem alături de noi Clariant, Cona, Cosmovici, un birou de avocatură specializat pe drepturile de proprietate intelectuală. Aceștia sunt noi membri Enviropac, IMAC, vă sunt cunoscute probabil Fero în zona chimicalelor speciale, Fiberdua, Korschlich Consulting, grupul Julius și Pluswerk. Din nou sunt dintre membrii noștri noi bineveniți alături de noi în aceste vremuri dificile și m-ar bucura dacă reprezentanții noilor membri sunt astăzi alături de noi. Și desigur cu toții îmi doresc să ne implicăm activ în discuția de astăzi. Așa arată situația actuală. Îmi lipsesc cuvintele, dar sper totuși că vom găsi o voce comună astăzi pentru ceea ce ni se întâmplă. Ciprian, ai sărit alături de noi, ai fost disponibil la anunțul nostru grăbit și îți mulțumim foarte mult pentru solicitudine. În deschidere, ca warm-up, vrem să intrăm într-o analiză economică despre ce înseamnă, de fapt, războiul din Ucraina pentru noi aici, în România, ce efecte poate să aibă implicații asupra relațiilor româno-germane. Din zona economică văd ca teme centrale pentru mine energia, dar și agricultura, pentru că Ucraina e un mare producător de produse agricole, ce înseamnă inflația în toată Europa și cealaltă temă este, desigur, lanțurile de furnizori, care cu mare probabilitate vor fi foarte puternic afectate încă de săptămâna asta și săptămâna viitoare chiar. Foarte puternic vor intra sub presiune. Am primit deja informații că întregul sector al industriei auto, care are facilități de producție în Ucraina, e sub mare presiune și se va ajunge la efecte semnificative asupra economiei germane. Ciprian, în deschidere, așteptăm să împărtășești cu noi gândurile tale de cum vrezi din perspectivă economică lucrurile și apoi voi deschide o discuție pe această temă și, desigur, mai încolo aș dori ca și domnul Stromelo de la BASF, care e în celula de criză de la BASF, e în Ungaria și ne poate spune cum arată lucrurile pentru firma lui. Dar întâi te rog, Ciprian, să iei cuvântul.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me over. Yeah, basically, 2022 wasn't, at least from the inflation perspective, shaping up as a good year. Basically, expectations for the Romanian economy was that 2022 we're going to see slower growth. Our expectations before this escalation in crisis were, in terms of growth, for a slowdown to 3.2 from 6.5 last year. Also, last year was rather disappointing. At least in the last quarter, we didn't. I think nobody expected a quarterly contraction, and the full year growth was 5.6. Well, versus expectation of somewhere between 6 and 6.5 last year.
Mr. Dascălu, sorry to intervene. You can speak in Romanian. We have simultaneous translation.
Ok. Prefer în engleză pentru că unele cuvinte nu prea sună bine în română. În traducerea economică.
Nici o problemă, nici o problemă.
So yeah, I rather, you know, some economic terms in Romanian sound a bit strange. So yeah, basically we expected the higher inflation to bite into a disposable income of households, and we anticipated for this year quite a significant slowdown in household consumption, and basically we see real wage growth this year negative. We have an average inflation forecast for the year at 9.6. Most likely the risk balance after recent events, it's for the forecast for the inflation outlook are tilted to the upside, so could be higher. While real wage growth, our forecast, it's basically pretty similar to what we had last year, 7.2. So hence like a 2.4 real negative wage growth, and unless you're gonna see some significant investments to offset it, we already expected a weaker growth. Again, when we have this kind of supply-driven inflation from higher commodities prices, there's no basically proper response from the monetary policy, and if you want to avoid the spillover into via second round effects into all the prices into economy, and already we saw some rapid pass from higher commodities prices in the broader prices. Basically, you have to come up with some fiscal measures to offset them, both for households and for companies. So far, we saw quite let's say the impact of the government measures was not visible, at least in the consumer prices, and basically Romania comes up again to the same fiscal issue when it comes to some government support during a crisis. There's limited fiscal headroom. So yeah, basically we already expected high inflation. Most likely, if high commodities prices will persist for longer, we're gonna see persistently higher inflation for a longer period. We already expected before this, basically this escalation, we already expected inflation to stay above the central bank target range, so above 3.5 until second half of 2024. Again, a lot depends on how the inflation will take its toll on economic growth. If the economic growth will slow down sharply, then yeah, coming up from the demand side, much weaker demand should at some point bring inflation down. Obviously, it's some kind of stop and go, which is not good for the economy. Well, in terms of recent shock via commodity prices, it's really difficult to come up with a decent scenario these days in terms of how long it would take this conflict and how it will end. Any case, in terms of already from higher commodity prices, we estimate an impact of minus 0.5 percentage points on this year economic growth. Based on our estimation, for example, a 10% increase in oil prices leads to 0.4 higher inflation. So first round 0.2 and second round effect another 0.2. And then again, we have some estimation that companies, due to higher costs in terms of transport and utilities, will be forced to kind of keep in control the cost base, so like 10% higher fuel and electricity and gas prices will lead overall for the economy to lower employment about 0.4 percentage points. So again, given the pretty limited fiscal headroom and the fact that the monetary policy can't really act on the supply side shocks, and it even risks to basically lead to future or increase the risk of future economic slowdown or even recession. Let's see if the government comes up with more, let's say, targeted policy measures to compensate for higher prices or to keep them in control. All in all, the scenario looks similar to a stagflation-like scenario, though is mostly driven by supply shocks. Again, it was mentioned earlier that we are already see let's say bottlenecks in terms of exports, in terms of supply chains. We already saw that there's a lot of pressure on the fertilizers, and if you add on top of this the fact that we could have some supply side shocks in terms of agri products from Ukraine and Russia, basically the whole, let's say, process of having the spring crops in place could be affected depending on how long the war it will be around. The only thing that can offset it's basically investments, which are at least in this year budget for Romania pretty significant, almost 7% of GDP. That could absorb some of the layoffs from the private sector. I also saw from the ECB some estimates on, let's say, gas supply shock. So they estimate that a 10% decrease in the gas supply due to, let's say, some kind of shortages that, and the government will come up to rationalize the gas consumption in favor of the households. That will basically shave off about 0.7% of the gross value added in the Eurozone economy, and the overall impact on the GDP growth, it will be 0.4 percentage points per year. Again, there's pretty significant differences between countries. Like Germany or Poland, they have bigger ties. Also, they have supply chains around. In terms of Romania, the ties with the conflict zone in terms of trade channel are very limited. So only 1.4% of total exports from Romania are heading to Russia, and below 1% of exports to Ukraine. Imports 3.2% of total from Russia and 1.4% from Ukraine. Again, from Russia, mostly gas imports. Again, Romania versus other countries, the dependence on Russian gas is rather low. More than 80% of gas consumption in Romania is produced domestically. Also, about 40% of oil consumption is from internal sources. So the trade links are rather limited. The financial links, again, very limited. There's no direct exposure in terms of financial system. There are some large financial institutions in Romania that their parent companies have exposure on Russia, but again, very limited. And the local banking system is very well capitalized and doesn't rely at all on external funding. So I wouldn't expect anything in terms of direct links, but either from anyway limited indirect links. As I mentioned, the exposure of Romanian companies in terms of export to the conflict zone, it's very small and manageable. So far, the central bank is keeping a tight grip on the currency. Usually they want to keep the currency stable during this geopolitical tensions. They think that the currency is very important in terms of expectations and consumer sentiment, and that's why they don't want to increase the panic. So we'd expect the currency to be around similar levels, at least in the first half of the year. Probably some mild depreciation into the year, and once inflation started to gradually decrease mostly due to statistical base effect, we expect the core inflation to remain pretty elevated. It actually surprised to the upside recently. As I mentioned, the pass-through seems much faster because the companies have the opportunity to, or had the opportunity so far, to increase prices as the demand was very strong. Even during the pandemic years, the wages have been increasing in real terms, and we were coming before the pandemic after like 4 or 5 years when we had high single digits, even in some years, I think double digits real wage growth. So the demand was very strong, but we see this year the inflation basically biting quite significantly into domestic domestic purchasing power. Interest rates, most likely they will go a bit higher, but as we saw in recent days, at least in the Eurozone, for the ECB, the expectations from the government debt market, from the long-term bonds, the expectation of interest rate increases or tightening by the ECB were delayed by the recent crisis, as most likely the expectations are much more tilted towards weaker growth, and most likely the higher inflation. The ECB would look through the higher inflation driven by this commodity shock.
Thank you very much, Ciprian, for your first estimation. some comments, maybe some questions from our community here on this economic side. So my takeaway is that you do not. There is no very small direct effects on trade and also on investment. That's clear. Definitely, we all have to observe. All the European countries have to check how is the relation, how will be the future relation towards Russia. But this is nothing that we can price in, let's say, right now into our analysis. But maybe some inputs from our member communities, how they expect the future economic outlook here in Romania for their business. Maybe Andreas, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I make here the icebreaker, not now as AHK president, as CEO of BASF. So I just yesterday had meetings with tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and they reported to me the automotive industry, and they reported there's of course a big tier industry in Ukraine is placed there, and they are not delivering anymore, or very, very limited. And this is already affecting the two OEMs in Germany stopped their production. So it will be heavily affect the automotive industry in Germany, at least at the moment, as long as there's no normal supply from Ukraine. So there are companies which I visited when I was in Ukraine, close to Kiev, somewhere in western Ukraine. Yeah, so there are a lot of companies also in eastern Ukraine. They stopped production, and of course, this is having immediate effect now for the automotive industry in Germany. And then we are looking into Romania, what is also a Romanian automotive country in this respect. So if they not produce, production will stop here as well. So we will see this very, very soon, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much for your input. Johannes?
What I have heard and what we see is that I think in a short term, so production lines which have been transferred from Romania to Ukraine will, at least temporarily, will come back to jump into for cable harnesses and other products. Yeah. The big question is, do we have enough blue collar, because it's always a shortage in the market, but maybe we get some blue collar from the refugees, at least for short term. I think in the short term, I think it will be even positive for Romania, at least in Europe.
It's a little bit not very pleasant to talk about what are the benefits of Romania. Can it be a harbor of security and of attracting investments? But Cyprian, nevertheless, how do you see Romania as an investment location? Maybe a little bit more abstract in this area in Southeast Europe. What is your estimation? Sorry, Cyprian, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I was kind of expected in the short term some relocation into Romania from the conflict zones and to Eastern Europe as well. Yeah, some countries in Eastern Europe have very tight labor markets. So if you think Czech Republic, they have labor force participation 83% and unemployment 3%. In Romania, I think provided that the government implements some reforms into the labor market, there's plenty of room to bring additional people in the labor market. So labor force participation in Romania, it's 67, 68%. Well, assuming that some of them are really remote or some of them are above certain age, but we estimate that there's still like somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million of people which are trained a few months, they can be part of the blue collar. again, you need training, reskilling, and so on. Also, perhaps some infrastructure. Again, we talk, I think, in our previous discussion about the labor market. Maybe there is also some issue that some people are not active because are benefiting from social, or basically are kind of exploiting too much the social benefits and so on. Perhaps also the gray economy in agriculture. But if you bring these people into labor market, I think there's room. I mean, Romania labor market is not as tight as Czech, not as tight as Hungary, and perhaps not even as Poland, because you don't need to look only at unemployment, but also very low labor force participation. So, but then again, you need some kind of reforms, starting from the labor ministry, that they should set up, let's say, some kind of agencies throughout the country to provide assistance and HR advice to people based on their skills, and actually help them reskill if needed.
Thank you very much, Andreas. We have one question from Mirella Lazar. Let's take her first. I saw it in the chat, but Mirella, maybe you can put it verbally here in Romanian, German, or English, as you like.
Well, I would rather stick with Romanian or English. My German is quite rusty, but thank you for
any language.
Thank you for the chance. I was just wondering if a business continuation plan, especially focusing on disasters, can be established in order to compensate the negative effects we are seeing in Ukraine, in tier 1s and possibly also tier 2s, and most predominantly in OEMs.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. Maybe we can then switch a little bit to the topic. What are companies doing right now in order to survive and to help? Maybe Andreas or Mr. Stromilo, maybe you can, because I heard, Mr. Stromilo, that you're on the crisis cell, let's say like this, and maybe you can share a little bit.
Maybe we come to this also in a minute. We will talk about people then, of course. But just one more aspect, if I have also Michael Bayer from the agro sector here with us. So what we hear, and we see this, I mean, I worked in Ukraine and they are producing, for example, 50% of the sunflower oil of the world. We will see skyrocketing food prices. And maybe Michael, from your side, what does this mean? I mean, if they cannot put something on the field, and what does this mean for Romania? Maybe Michael, as you're working for the agro sector, you can comment on this a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andreas. We are keeping close contact to our organization in Ukraine, where we are also represented. And for the moment, there is not a single sense about doing business. There is everything stopped on the one hand side. On the other hand side, we have to admit that the cultivating of the fields is done already. The seed is in the soil, the fertilizer is most probably also provided to the fields, so everything starts growing, but we are very much afraid that about harvests cannot be any discussion so far under those conditions. Especially we have to admit that all the supplies towards the Ukraine, they are stopped currently. So there is no good entering the Ukraine country. No spare part is entering the country, and this means that normally we are now in a period of the year when the farmers are doing their preliminary repair works on their combine harvesters, for instance. So everything is now normally under normal conditions in preparation for the harvest. So I think the consequences, they are clear for everybody. And this will drive the prices upwards. This is for sure.
Thank you. And also you mentioned nothing is coming in. There's still also a lot of fungicides and herbicides, what is needed, what is not coming in. And with this, of course, there will be lower yield per hectare. I mean, this is reasonable. So, and what you mentioned, harvesting, that is on another paper, but it will be a very, very difficult season there. And if this anyhow will work, so there are other problems now,
Absolutely. It is from our perspective for the moment really hard to predict. what will be in June of this year. Who is then the combine driver at the end of the day, to make that very clear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Michael. Do we have another question or comment or thought going in the economic area, which Cyprian can maybe comment further, or because I know that Cyprian can only follow the first half an hour or something like this, and so it would be a good occasion. Yeah, otherwise, I would like to reorient a little bit our discussion here today and ask, yeah, what are companies right now doing? We have HR specialists actually today invited from different companies. Instead of discussing future of work, they are discussing right now how they can help people, their people. Mr. Stromilo, maybe you can give us some thoughts, some insights in your crisis management, and then I would like also to maybe Christina from Bosch or somebody else can share some thoughts about it. Mr. Stromilo, what is your daily work right now?
Danke, Herr Metz. Und erstmal Englisch oder Deutsch? Was ist einfacher für die Übersetzung?
So, ja, machen Sie es ruhig Englisch, dann vielleicht geht es am besten so, ich weiß nicht.
Okay, so thank you then, Mr. Metz, first of all, for the invitation. I was invited to speak today about a completely different topic, about future of work. But as Andreas mentioned at the beginning, it's a very different situation right now that we are dealing with, and these things are moving to the background. And we personally, I would like to say, I really appreciate that we also had the courage to change the subject here today on short notice. I think it's appropriate, and I think it's an important sign. From a company perspective, I can only share that the first measure that we took was to establish a crisis management team, actually not only for Ukraine, but for the whole region of EMEA, because the impact that we will see from this crisis is not only limited to Russia and Belarus and Ukraine and the neighboring countries, but effectively will also impact all the other countries in Europe when we think about the refugee streams, etc., and the economic impacts that have been touched upon already. And the biggest and most important focus of this crisis management team is, of course, on the personal safety of our employees in the affected countries. And when I say the affected countries, this is, of course, first and foremost Ukraine, but there are potentially also some dangers, of course, to our employees in the other two countries that are involved in this crisis, and in Belarus and in Russia. I cannot say so much about the different things that we have been doing. It's very, very early, but of course we have been giving the clear advice to our employees. We've been in touch with them to really make their safety, their personal safety, a priority. And we respected the decisions of each and every employee and their families, what that means. So there is no one-size-fits-all solution and statements. What is the best answer to that? Some have decided to flee and leave Kiev and the surrounding area. And of course, we are supporting them, welcoming them on their route, supporting them and organizing transportation and also accommodation. Others have decided that they feel more safe staying in Kiev and in the surrounding area. No question that we, of course, have closed the office and suspended all work there currently for our employees. So far, the good news is that all our employees are safe and sound, and we hope that this will remain the case. This is what I can say about the situation in Ukraine. First of all, what I would like to highlight, though, is what is very, very heartwarming is really the reaction from our employees and colleagues in the surrounding countries, specifically Poland, Slovakia, Romania, and in Hungary, So we have received a lot of proactive requests and questions from our employees, what they can do in terms of transportation, how they can support with accommodation, whether they can drive or whether they can volunteer to drive to the border, pick up employees from BSF or other refugees as well from the Ukraine. So this was very, very, I would say, heartwarming for us to see that really there's a lot of sympathy and empathy from our employees with everybody involved in this crisis. And then maybe last but not least, when it comes to our employees also in Russia and Belarus, we have been also advising them to stay home and try to avoid any kind of public, let's say, spaces and public transportation, because right now the focus is highly on Ukraine, of course, but you don't know whether there might be from an individual, for example, an attack to actually answer this aggression and make a statement also in public places in Russia. So this is just something we have advised our employees to consider, and also to stay safe and at home if in any case possible.
Thank you very much. Are there any other observation from our community that you want to share right now? I would like to ask Christina Corello from Bosch. You were also supposed to talk about future of work today, Christina, but now we do not know how is our future looking like. So Bosch, certainly you have also some activities in Ukraine. What is your picture right now? What occupies you right now in terms of crisis management?
So we are working currently on two layers, in regard to the crisis management. One is on EMEA level, and the second one is considering the countries that have a border with Ukraine. And here I have my colleagues from Hungary, the colleagues from Poland and Romania. And our focus is actually split it in two. One is in regard to how we are helping in general people from Ukraine, and how are we able to provide any kind of supplies, how are we able to involve ourselves, but using the channels which the government is right now providing us as a support. But on the other side, it's the way we are able to support the almost 400 associates, Bosch associates from Ukraine. And here we have established communication channels. So each and every of them, for the almost 400, knows exactly whom to contact from the different countries in order to ask for help and to ensure that in case their decision is moving towards Romania or Poland or Hungary or whatever other country, we are facilitating this transfer. So, this is the way we have organized ourselves and try to be very close to them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, some more input from companies representatives today here in our monthly member meetings. Maybe from companies who have offices or who have also offices near the border. Maybe you can share some insights on what you experience right now at the border. I have one question from Anna Beer from PNP Intersearch. Anna, maybe you can just click on your camera and then ask your question right away. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, it was a question initially addressed to Mr. Strumilo from BSF, but also to Mrs. Corello. When discussing with some of our global clients, besides the crisis management teams that they are establishing to deal with the actual situation, what is food for thought is for the near future, how to address the sensitivities within a global organization, especially due to this actual situation. And this is a subject that is on the agenda of almost all the leaders that we have been discussing these days.
Mr. Stromilo, do you want to?
I was listening closely, but I'm not sure what the question is. I'm sorry.
Do you prepare in any way to address future cross-border possible tensions within the global organization? Because your company has employees in Russia, in Ukraine, in Romania, Poland, Belarus, and these tensions most probably will be inherent. Okay, business is business, but we have to take into consideration also the cultural sensitivities.
I understand. Very good point. I have to be very honest. This is addressing more the midterm to long-term effects. I cannot make a statement on that now. Right now, our focus is really to save lives, if possible, make sure everybody is safe and secure. And the points that you raise are very, very valid. I believe there will be implications. What they are and how we will have to deal with them is something I cannot answer at this point in time. But Andreas has raised his hand, so maybe Andreas, if you would like to comment on that.
Yeah, I have a certain experience here from 2013, 14, 15, from this period, Maidan. So I have to say our organization very, very professionally managed this. So there was not this tension visible. Whether this was on the surface, I cannot judge, or under the surface, I cannot judge. Yeah. I assume yes, but in official communication, very professionally managed.
Thank you. Lucian from Collier's. Collier has definitely also offices from in the Ukraine. Have you heard anything from your organization? What is happening right now? What can you share with us?
I was just reading before, even 15 minutes before this our event started, I was reading the letter from the CEO of Collier's Ukraine. Very impressive. It seems he was writing this letter from behind the barricade because he's fighting in the streets, literally. He and some of our colleagues in Ukraine, they picked up weapons. They sent their families to further, let's say, further west in Ukraine to be with the relatives. And now they are standing and defending Kiev. And they were very grateful of how we reacted, and generally the world has mobilized and is recognizing that this is an aggression. They were saying that it's highly important that we reach out to the Russian people also and explain to them that this is not, he said, this is not a peacekeeping effort on the part of Russia. Rather is an aggression, and people need to know. He also mentioned some accounts in which the other countries can help, and then some money would be raised. And he wasn't able at this point to think where he should direct the funds, but hopefully he will get around to thinking a bit and see where such money would be most needed. He was very confident that Ukraine will be coming out of this as a free country, and they will not be overwhelmed. So we are now dealing strictly with the human aspect of things. Nobody there is discussing impact or economical or anything related to that. It's hour by hour, day to day survival. So also from my point of view, I have spent the last 2 days trying to figure out some real estate problems from the perspective of the refugees. I have been speaking with some landlords of empty office buildings, as we are thinking that soon enough maybe the hotel capacities will be overrun. There are these ballrooms and all other gathering places that could be occupied, but also I'm thinking that office buildings with raised floor and carpet and decent temperature of 21 degrees up to 24 degrees with functioning toilets and everything, especially the ones that have been already inhabited or have been left by other companies to go to nicer places. These could be used for passage, at least, because there are, I don't know if you know, but there are not only refugees who are coming from Ukraine, but there are also Indian people that hundreds by the hundreds that are leaving for India through Romania, and they have left, or they are leaving as we speak, from Ukraine and are coming to Bucharest in a few days. Their numbers are like hundreds of, in excess of 1,000 people will be coming, and they will need to stay somewhere for 2-3 days, because the embassy of India is only able to fly out from Bucharest 200 people per day. So it will be necessary for at least 5 to 7 days to get everyone on their way to Delhi or Mumbai or wherever they are flying back home. So the puzzle now was, where do we put 1,000 people? This is what I've spent my day today. Where do we put 1,000 people for 3 days if the Red Cross and the specialized organization cannot find 1,000 beds or 1,000 mattresses or whatever is necessary? I've got some good responses so far. I think we may have one solution. Then again, we are speaking also with, I'm also in charge of logistics, and we are speaking to the landlords of warehouses because the NGOs are now gathering supplies in order to put them on trucks and send them to Ukraine. And they need this temporary storage. So far, we are trying to help out in this regard as well. The landlords are more than open to use every bit of warehouse that is not already rented to help with this logistic problem. So people are mobilizing nicely. We are trying to do our part as well. So I couldn't tell you very much about business at this point and what will be the effects, but it's nice to see that people come first, and people from Ukraine are very welcome, and people from other parts of the world fleeing Ukraine are helped to go to safety.
Thank you very much, Lucian, for sharing your thoughts. Mr. Strumilo, you had a raised hand.
Thank you. Maybe more a personal reflection than a standpoint or viewpoint now that is officially coming from the company. I think I was thinking about the question about the tension now, and I think there's something we have to avoid also in our communication as people, as managers. We talk about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but this aggression coming from the Putin administration is not equaling and reflecting all the Russian people's standpoint on this matter. And I think this is maybe something that we need to be mindful of when we talk about this conflict, that we don't make the mistake to say Putin and his administration equals all Russian people. And this is something I could now see when I was talking also to colleagues and employees from Russia, now from our company. There is total solidarity and I would say no support whatsoever for this aggression, because we all share the same values: peace, respect, and dignity and freedom. And this is, I think, the common denominator that, at least in our company, I think we all agree to, and I also think beyond this, and this will also, from my perspective now as a first reflection, mean that this will help to ease tensions and any kind of potential conflicts between employees.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, definitely. I have two more questions in the chat, and I always like that the people are coming, asking the question here. So Magda, and after Irina. Magda, what was your question?
Hi, everyone. First of all, I think it's so good that we've switched the discussion to the crisis that we are all facing these days. We also have an office in Ukraine. Our colleagues there, so I should say I'm Magda and I'm working for AMROP Executive Search. And we also have an office in Ukraine. Our colleagues have decided to stay. That seemed to be a very good idea last week. In the meantime, because things have worsened a lot, the situation has taken a toll on their mindset. Anxiety and depression's level have risen up. Of course, we are trying to help them with everything we can so that they can flee Ukraine. In the meantime, some of them have taken this decision. But also, we realize it's so important that we try to offer them some psychotherapy or some kind of psychological support. And my question was related to this. Is any company offering something like this to their people in Ukraine, for example?
Okay, good question as well. Post-traumatic problems will come a little bit after, when the people are in security, but nevertheless it will come. Maybe if nobody wants to say something right now, it's okay, it's completely okay. But thank you very much, Magda, for sharing this thought here.
I saw an answer in the chat, so maybe I will connect with Ahmed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Irina, maybe your question?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Irina Munzala. I'm joining on behalf of EY, Romania and Moldova. And I guess that's an important mention nowadays. We also have employees in Moldova. But we also have several hundreds of employees in Ukraine. Some of them have made it to the border, but lots of them are writing to us. We have a task force in the region, so I think we're doing things that everybody else is doing. So it's good to get a confirmation that we're doing the right thing, because I think everybody was acting from the heart since Thursday. So we do have some employees which have reached the border, have crossed the borders. We were helping them with transportation, accommodation, arranging flights, tickets to destinations they wanted to reach. But on the other hand, we have a number of people which are still sitting in Kiev and cannot leave the city. So maybe I was thinking whether anyone has a magic solution to that. We're learning that a humanitarian corridor will be built out of Kiev, but we have no official information on that. So just wanted to ask if anyone in the call has a magic solution to that. Of course, the borders is in Ukraine, it's not something that we can address as an employee. We can only help them once they've crossed the border. And I've seen this for my colleagues in Slovakia, for my colleagues in Poland, and also in Romania. So wondering if someone else has a different opinion, because this is in the interest of helping our colleagues, but also the friends. We've said yes to everyone, not only UI employees.
Thank you very much, Irina. Somebody wants to comment on this? Ahmed or Daniel from the German embassy? Christina, yeah, okay. But Ahmed, maybe you can also say something. Do you have any information from the embassy or in Ukraine, from the German embassy in the Ukraine on this? But please, Christina, first.
Yeah, so the answer is we do not have a magic solution, unfortunately, Irina. And because of this, and we know that we are speaking about so many situations, the reason why we have tried to establish this one-way communication, so everybody knows that they are able to achieve somebody from either Romania or from Poland or from another country. But here I'm meaning exclusively our associates. And depending on their needs, some of them already, we know that they already left Ukraine, but some of them are still there. Yeah. And depending on what they are deciding, they have to know only whom to contact. And starting from that moment, we know how to activate internally between us and how we are able to provide the right solution given the specific situation of each associate.
Thank you, Christina.
Because otherwise it would be a mess, because you don't know, you cannot say it's one single solution for everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Daniel, maybe have you some information from the German embassy in Ukraine, something that is maybe important also for our community here?
So far, me personally, not. What we can tell you is that, of course, the economic section of the German embassy here in Bucharest is following the events very closely. And yes, we are in an analysis mode, and to find out what the consequences of this aggression will be, also for the German companies, also for the economy as a whole. What I can tell you is that we have right now a German diplomat and a local employee that are stationed for 5 days in Suceava, right at the border, to see that things are going okay with the refugees. And of course, there will be some German citizens who probably will transit from the north, from Ukraine through Romania, and this will change. So maybe even Ahmed Bekov and me, let's say, we could also be deployed there and help out. So yeah.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Hi everybody. Yeah, I just got the call that I might be going on Sunday, and so we're a little bit in crisis mode. It's great that we switched today's topic. It's been also very valuable for us to get the insight from the economical and from the company perspective, because obviously everybody's wondering what does it mean for German business. So thanks a lot everybody for sharing, and we're also trying to put volunteering offers and requests together, especially for the volunteers. My wife, who is a Russian speaker, is in touch with the community here, so they're also trying to do volunteering. So if anybody also feels there's a need for specifically working with refugees in Russian language here in Romania, I'll be posting my email address to the chat. Just send me an email and I'll feed it into this circle of volunteers, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much, Tudor. From Hotspot, you are also trying to help. Something that you are doing, maybe you can share this as well here in our community.
Yes, well, it's not too much at the moment. We're trying to understand what can be done. So the best we could come up at the moment was to gather material donations. So we are in contact with the Red Cross and with other organizations directly involved, or with private persons. Actually, a colleague of ours is driving back and forth to the border, bringing help items to the border and bringing the refugees back to Bucharest. So we can help at the moment only by gathering material donations. We have a call now for warm clothes. Apparently everybody's donating for women, but they have nothing for men. And also sanitary things like shaving things and little things like that, towels, basic things that people need. This is just a recent information, and we gather them here at Hotspot and then try to distribute them on the fastest way to get to the border through different means. So if you're wondering what to do with your stuff and you're somewhere in the area, just bring it to us and we'll try to forward it to get to the right places. That's what we do at the moment. And we also encourage to money donations either to the people that are buying stuff and bringing them to the border, or especially to the Red Cross, which is involved. So we discussed with them, and they're involved very much in it.
Thank you very much. If you want to share your contact details in the chat, you are free to do so. Or you can also write us as AHK an email.
Exactly, the AHK, we are in the same place, so the address is the same as of the AHK. So please just bring your stuff here during the normal office hours, or
I want to switch a little bit to Dan Bromboyo. I hope that he's still in the call. Dan, don't be surprised, but you're a good friend of mine, and you're close to a border in Satu Mare area. Maybe you can share some insights at this region in Romania. Are you still? Yeah, yes. You are still here. Perfect. Yes. What is happening in Satu Mare right now?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Hello, Sebastian. So yes, we are near from the Ukrainian border. Of course, these days the population is doing many things. Trying to help the people from Ukraine who are crossing the border in our direction, because I think many of them, they are speaking Romanian, they're speaking Hungarian, so they consider them like family, like brothers, and that's very good to help each other. At the same time, we had, because of the capacity of the border, we had the cross border here in Petea or near Polipol in Urziceni. They were blocked for many hours. Of course, the capacity of the border are limited, but the people who were waiting there were helped with food, with anything they need, and in my opinion, the population here were very quickly organized in order to help the others. As a company, of course, we also are influenced by this crisis because we don't have a plant in Ukraine, but we have a plant in Belarus, Weißrussland, and at the moment we have also suppliers. They are getting goods from Ucraina, and especially wood products. And of course, we have other alternatives, but I'm sure the availability of these goods and the prices that we will have difficulties. Not only the plant in Romania, but also the plants in Poland. That will be also that's the main spirit here is to help the others really, and to be sure that people are safe and they will be received in places to sleep and to get really food and everything else. The spirit is a very positive one regarding helping the Ukrainian.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and lots of people in Satu are talking also in Ukraine, so that is also a good advantage that you have. So
yes.
Andreas, please.
Sebastian, I'd like to take up this point from Dan. So basically, the question is also, what can we as business community, as association, as AHK, as people, as companies do for the refugees? I mean, there are very simple things. Yesterday, I had 3 colleagues come from Ukraine. My colleague in Yash went to Sukiava, met them there, yeah? And it appears that they only came with a backpack. So she decided then on spot to buy in Yash some basic things. So today evening I will meet them, this team of 3 colleagues here in Bucharest. So they take a plane from Yash to Bucharest now, and I will support them here now also on spot, and we will discuss also how we can better support, yeah, and of course, as said, very basic things and we have to think about as companies, as business community, what we can do in order to support the people on spot there, maybe already in Sukiava region, how we can become more present. I know there are donations and so on, but maybe we have also some ideas, and looking here into the round, what we can do to support.
Question. Yeah, there's one on Georgia.
Hello.
Sorana, okay, it's you.
Yeah. I've been speaking to some of my colleagues who are there on the border, ex-colleagues and people who are involved in this effort of supporting the refugees. And one of the unexpected issues they have, it's many people who have legal issues. So some people don't have papers and so on. So therefore, any support also on this side is more than welcome. It's just, of course, there is a need of leadership, because for the time being, it's a lot of chaos, and everybody wants to do something, but it's very little coordination, and that's not very helpful. We are wasting precious energies. So therefore, if there is anybody who can support them also on this issue, perhaps it's worth having a look at it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sorana, for this input. Yeah. Any more input on this, what has been said so far? Okay, anyhow, I mean, our email address is available. We will see what we can do from our team, from AHK team. If you have something, please inform us as well. But we will try to find a way to deal with this and try to network to match the different initiatives. But we are also not very well prepared for this crisis right now, like everybody. But nevertheless, there are some organizations which were mentioned already, like Rote Kreuz, or the one which is Ms. Bulwaka putting in the chat. We will look at who we can support, also which other NGOs are doing good initiatives that we can recommend in our business community. Things you want to be communicated. We have communication means like our newsletter. We can always give visibility to the NGOs who are doing this. So please contact as well us as AHK in order to help in this situation. We will definitely come back to our business community also with some more information. But right now we are, as I said, organizing ourselves to be reactive and not to be chaotic. So this is very important, not to increase the chaos which is existing right now, potentially at the border. Yeah. Some more thoughts, some more reflections. Otherwise, I would like to hand over to Andreas to finalize this complex scenario that we are facing right now. This is what we can do tonight, this evening, and I hope that we find a solution for this scenario right now. Andreas.
Yeah, many things. Yeah, times we never experienced, we are now experiencing, and I believe, and we are doing this, we have to change our agenda. People first, business second. We have really to think about how we can support, and I'm grateful for this very constructive discussion today for the various aspects. It is now our responsibility and obligation as human beings, as business community, as companies, to support the people from Ukraine, to be with them, to support, give them a strong backing. And I can only say I'm really emotionally touched by this. I get it daily already now during our meeting. What we had, I had friends calling me, I had employees calling me, colleagues from Ukraine said, please help me. I'm standing there. I will come in a couple of minutes to the border. We have to act. We have to be really active on this. And I can only say, let's pray and hope that this conflict will end and then we come back to peace. So that's all what I can say, and many thanks for your constructive contribution. Thank you so much.
Okay, goodbye everybody, and keep in contact.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Buonanotte.
Bye.
Tschüss, Sebastian, bis
Pa,
gleich.
pa.
Bis gleich. Tschüss.
La revedere!